Hey everybody, it's Steve, and I hope you're doing well. But if you're not, you're in the right place. Because I have a wonderful reading for you from David Brooks' How to Know a Person. And this book is wonderful. So far, I'm not done with it, but it's been wonderful. And in the book, on page 163, David Brooks tells the story of a young Frederick Buechner, a name that you may know and love as a wonderful author, a wonderful thinker and feeler. He died in 2022. So this reading goes this way. In 1936, when Frederick Buechner was 10, he woke up one fall day at sunrise. He and his brother, who was 8, were excited because their parents were going to take them to a football game. The game was not what excited them. It was the thought of the whole family, grandmother included, going on an outing with treats and fun and adventures. It was still too early to get up, so the boys lay in bed. At one point, their door opened, and their father looked in on them. Years later, neither brother could remember if their father said anything to them. It seemed like just a casual check any parent might make to ensure that everybody was safe. A little while later, they heard a scream and the sounds of doors opening and closing. They looked out their window and saw their father lying on the gravel driveway with their mother and grandmother barefoot and still in their nightgowns, leaning over him. Each woman had one of his legs in her hands. They were lifting his legs up and down as if they were operating two handles of a pump. Nearby, the garage door was open and blue smoke was billowing out. A car screeched to halt at the foot of the driveway, and a doctor scrambled out, crouched over their dad, and gave a small shake of his head. Their father had gassed himself to death. It took them a few days to find the suicide note, which their dad had scratched in pencil on the last page of Gone with the Wind. It was addressed to their mom. I adore you and love you and am no good. Give Freddie my watch. Give Jamie my pearl pin. I give you all my love. It's such a sad story, isn't it? Such a sad story. And what's so interesting about that, as David Brooks tells in the following pages, is how the two boys responded so differently to that tragedy. Frederick's younger brother wept and grieved openly for days, weeks, months, years. But Frederick became aware that he responded much more stoically, really much more like his mother had responded for years and years, without tears and without grief, until an event happens that takes place that David Brooks shares with us that involves an encounter with his mom and another person who's hurting, and David becomes aware that he's responded to his father's tragedy and tragic death in the same way his mom has, and it hasn't been a good response. That began just years, even decades, of Frederick Buechner really becoming the author that we came to know. And so I share that with you with 3 takeaways for you. 2 thoughts and really a plea. The first thought is everyone carries a heavy load. Everyone carries a heavy load of emotion, of grief, of responsibility, of stress, of confusion. Who knows what that load is? Only that person, only you know your load. But you should know there's no exception to that. And when you have eyes to see that, and you come to understand that, you'll know, number one, you're not alone. But number two, you won't be intimidated by people in the future. You won't be as easily impressed, unduly impressed, but you will be more compassionate. You'll walk into a room and you'll know. You don't know how, but you know it's true. Because whether it's in their childhood or youth, or last night or this morning, something's up. Something's not as it should be, and they're carrying it. My second thought for you is not only does everyone carry a heavy load, but that includes even the strongest among us. In another section, a little bit later, David Brooks tells this story of when he was the co-founder of Weave, the social fabric project. He says, I interviewed hundreds of community builders, people who led youth programs, food banks, homeless shelters, and the like. They were deeply satisfied by having the chance to help others, but they often noted that no one was actually there to serve them, to minister to them in their weak and exhausted moments. The person who seems strongest in any family or organization can also feel alone. Well, again, everyone carries a heavy load, and that includes your boss, your executive director, the CEO, president. That includes your pastor. And if you're in a position of responsibility, you know that that includes you. There's just no exception. So be encouraged that you have permission to be human, no matter where you might sit or stand in your organization. And now my third thought for you is really a plea. It's an exhortation. Everyone carries a heavy load. That includes the strongest among us. So reach out. That's my third thought for you, is reach out. Don't go it alone. Don't go it alone. There are people, I believe, in your world, personally and professionally, who love you and care about you. And they would love you and care about you even if they knew that you were struggling. You don't have to keep up that external facade of having, everything the way it ought to be, because it isn't that way. And there are professionals out there, therapists, spiritual directors, coaches like me. There are pastors to pastors. Reach out. And there are friends and there are family folks. And you'll have to discern who are the trustworthy ones, who can keep confidence, who can listen without trying to fix it. But reach out. I want to mention my life verse, which has evolved at this age and stage of my life. It's Isaiah chapter 50, verse 4. And Isaiah writes a prophetic passage, and he's really describing the Messiah, Jesus. And he articulates for the Messiah and says, the sovereign Lord has given me an instructed tongue to know the word that sustains the weary. He wakens me morning by morning, wakens my ear to listen as one being instructed. And you can see how Jesus did that. He was an early riser. Sometimes he'd spend the night in prayer. And he was not just speaking, he was listening. And that's the kind of person I want to be as a human being, as a father, as a husband, as a friend, and as a coach. I've spent my life trying to find my voice, but at this time, I'm trying to find my ears. Because what matters so much more than anything is not what I have to say to you, it's what you have to say, and I want to listen. So reach out. Reach out to me, reach out to somebody. And now finally, I have an invitation for you, related, but not necessarily topically, but related. It's community. And that is, I'd like to invite you to my second Connection and Convo meeting. This will take place on Leap Year Day, February the 29th, at noon Mountain Time and at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. And there's no charge. You can come to either of those meetings. The vibe and the conversation will be similar. But the noon meeting I'm calling a leadership lunch and learn, because it's skewed 60-40 toward people carrying the responsibility that that leaders do in their organization or in their world, a little bit more of a professional kind of heartbeat and vision. And so, but you're welcome to come no matter what your place in life or your title. Same thing is true for the evening meeting. It'll have a little more maybe informal vibe. I mean, they're both going to be informal. That's me, but it's going to have a little bit more of a life focus versus a leadership focus. But 60-40, everything's up for grabs and everything's available. So I would like to invite you. There's no charge, and you simply have to register by clicking on the button here. And you're welcome to invite a friend as well, or anyone you like, because it's just open. It's just a little community building, a noon luncheon, leadership lunch and learn in the evening, connection and combo. I'd love to see you there. And thanks for listening. And hang in there. Take care of yourself and those around you. Lots of love. Bye-bye.